must stop the terror. Now watch this drive.
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden.
Wakanda forever.
Minnesota!
Please clap.
I know the human being and fish can coexist peacefully.
Rick, I'll tell you what. 10,000 bucks? $10,000 bet?
I'm not in the betting business,
but okay.
Spencer Cox is a former telecom executive who always seems like he's auditioning for the title of America's guiltiest white guy.
I'm a Republican. I'm a Democrat. Go Jazz.
Rip City, go Blazers.
Disagreeing better, not disagreeing less, is the answer.
Welcome everybody. Welcome to Big Rock Insights. It is Monday, December 1st. Let's just hop into it. First story I wanted to cover, the Utah wrong way DUI. I'm sure everybody is aware of this story. On November 29th, so just a few days ago, I think in the morning of November 29th, early in the morning, like 1 a.m., 21-year-old Jose Angel Torres Jimenez entered the northbound lanes of the I-15 traveling southbound. Jimenez drove head-on into 18-year-old Leo Shepard and 17-year-old Annika Wilson. The collision resulted in the deaths of Shepard and Wilson, tragically. The video is horrible. I don't recommend going back and seeing it, but you can find it. The car is just in an insane fireball. Jimenez was arrested and he was charged with 3 charges. He was charged with automobile homicide, violation of a learner's permit, and a DUI. So in the state of Utah, if you got a learner's permit, you can't drive a vehicle on your own. You have to have an adult in the car with you. So yeah, homicide, violation of a permit, and a DUI. Utahns, including myself, were rightfully upset at this story. I was even more upset when the name of the suspect was released. I think many, including myself, immediately jumped to the conclusion that Jimenez is an illegal immigrant. I don't think that that's really going out on a limb, especially if you're familiar at all with how dangerous Utah's roads are and how prolific illegal drivers are and illegal drivers causing car crashes is in the state of Utah. And I was not alone. Utah Representative Mike Lee, he represents parts of Davis County up in the state legislature. Trevor Lee reposted the story, and he quoted it saying, "Driver is most likely illegal." Now, if you can imagine, this tweet ignited a firestorm of criticism from Utah's online shitlibs, calling him racist, calling him unchristlike, calling him everything that they could throw at him. And they were just throwing that at him for daring to imply that Jimenez, who was going the wrong direction on the I-15, drunk, and driving with the wrong form of driving identification, the fact that he would even imply that he was an illegal immigrant was to them, worse than even driving headfirst into 2 Utah teenagers. Arrest details later that were released showed that Jimenez was in fact born in the United States, so technically a U.S. citizen. I've got my own thoughts on that. I'm sure a lot of you do too. But my initial thought on this whole freak out and going in and just seeing people's reaction to Trevor Lee making a very not unreasonable educated guess on the citizenship status of the driver. Are these brain dead liberals? Are they aware at all of how suicidal our driving licenses laws are? We issue 35,000 driving privilege cards to illegals every single year. We offer the driving license test in 13 languages. Hit and runs have doubled from 2,500 to 5,000 in just 5 years, and illegals account for nearly 1/3 of crashes and 50% of hit and runs in cities like West Valley and other cities in the valley, in the Salt Lake Valley. Unlicensed drivers are 5 times more likely to be involved in a fatal crash. So if you see that someone named Jose Angel Torres Jimenez drove the wrong way on the I-15 while drunk, no, I'm sorry, you're not racist for assuming they're an illegal immigrant. I'm sorry, like the facts and I mean, our brains are designed to pick up on obvious patterns, and this crash has all the signs of a third world driver who shouldn't be on the road to begin with, causing massive destruction. Um, so anyway, Trevor Lee did nothing wrong. I saw a couple people supporting him. I definitely supported his assessment. It's not out of left field by any means. Again, if you're familiar with, I'll do a quick plug on my YouTube channel. I have a video on this. Also on my website, bigrockinsights.com. I have an article about this that just kind of is a summary of the video I made. But I talk about, how crazy Utah's roads are, and how traitorous a lot of the legislators in our government have or are in enabling these third world drivers on our roads. So assuming somebody who's got a Mexican name is a illegal immigrant, when they are doing, when they're driving on the road drunk in the wrong direction, I'm sorry that's not crazy to me. But speaking of third world crimes, I think this story dropped either early today or later. I think early today, actually. 17 people were arrested in Provo in relation to a cockfighting ring. I think this was actually on the 29th or the 30th, so almost the same time period as this crash. Officers in Provo, they got a warrant and they flew a drone over this property where they captured footage of vehicles loading cages of roosters in and out of vehicles and around the property. There were apparently more than 360 living roosters and more than 50 dead ones discovered on the property, along with needles and liquids used to make the roosters more aggressive. So, I don't know, I imagine maybe some testosterone, maybe some stimulants of some kind. They found scorecards, they found trophies, they found like a leaderboard of like names and like as if they were like, who made the most correct bets or who had the most winning roosters or whatever. When they made the arrest, apparently they came in, the police came in, 50 according to the story, 50 to 100 other people on the property just swarmed and like ran in all directions trying to get away. So it wasn't like it was 17 people that were all there that got caught. It sounds like it was a massive party of people in Provo, watching this massive cockfighting ring. I will point out, and I'm sure that every civilized person in this space is probably aware of this, but in case you are brain dead or you hail from the third world, cockfighting is illegal in Utah and in all 50 states. All the suspects apparently are facing Class A and Class B misdemeanors for like animal abuse. I think there's actually like one of the charges is specific to like cockfighting. I think it's like abuse of a rooster or something like that. But it's illegal here. It's illegal in every state. And it is ironically not illegal in many places in Central America, including Sinaloa and other Mexican states. So cockfighting is fully legal in Sinaloa and other Mexican states. And anecdotally, I kind of knew and was aware of cockfighting. I think like in high school, I think somebody like made a joke about it or whatever, and I was like, I have no idea what that is. And they're like, yeah, it's when they like put metal talons on chickens and make them fight, and I had like no concept for it. But the only time I've seen it with my own eyes was when I was in the Dominican Republic. There's this like property and they had like a giant cage and they were making the chickens fight each other and they would eat the loser. This story is obviously, it's not funny. It's kind of funny, but it's not. but it's literally the epitome of import the third world, become the third world. Cockfighting is not something that is common or tolerated at all in the United States. But surprise, surprise, Utah takes on, the entire, you know, the entire Central American region and Mexico and Venezuela, and invites everybody in. And lo and behold, we have a giant cockfighting ring in Provo of all places. Shouldn't be surprised. It's surprising, but you shouldn't be surprised, frankly. So anyway, next, just speaking of South America and then, or Central America, and then, well, I guess this is South America. So on November 27th, Trump said the U.S. would very soon begin taking action to stop Venezuelan drug traffickers on land. And then on Saturday, so what, the 29th, Trump declared the airspace above Venezuela to be effectively a no-fly zone. The U.S. has been carrying out its largest military buildup in the Caribbean. I actually didn't know this. It's the largest military buildup in the Caribbean since the Cuban Missile Crisis. They started in August of 2025. They've got thousands of troops down there. They've got drones. They got fighter jets. And now they have, in early November, the USS Gerald Ford. It's our biggest and baddest aircraft carrier, is now right off the coast of Venezuela. Some reports actually indicate that 25% of all U.S. deployed warships are now in the Caribbean. I mean, I'm not a big foreign interventionist. I'm not saying I support American intervention in the Middle East, or having all of our carriers off the coast of Israel or China, or near Taiwan, or any of that. I'm not saying I support any of that, but it is pretty remarkable that 25% of all of our warships have been moved locally. I mean, I think in I should be more supportive of pulling our troops in, or pulling our assets closer to home. But considering why they're being pulled in there, it's a little bit alarming if you are opposed to regime change wars, which this really seems like. At the very least, if we don't end up going to full-fledged war with Venezuela, if it ends up being like strategic targeted attacks or bombings like what we did with Iran earlier this year, at the very least, it really does seem like Trump wants Maduro and the Venezuelan regime to think they're about to go to war with them. Trump and Maduro have spoken on the phone, actually, about Maduro abdicating leadership. The official reason for all of this, they haven't really done that great of a job of really selling why we're about to potentially go to war in Venezuela, or at the very least use military assets, air assets, or the CIA's been been approved to do operations in Venezuela. The official reason is Venezuela is a narco state. Its leaders are in they're an organized narco terrorist organization that is seeking to recoup funds or make more funds by organizing drug dealing through South and Central America into the United States. That's the official reason. The White House, it appeared to be making a case for action by what it seems like they want to do. They want to designate Venezuela's Cartel de los Soles as a terrorist organization, and then saying that Maduro is its leader. And from what I actually can understand, the Cartel de los Soles is not. It's not technically a cartel like the Sinaloa cartel. It's a term that is used by Venezuelans and other political and military leaders to describe the political and military leaders who are involved in just a wide range of criminal activities. It's kind of like North Korea, where North Korea has to, because they're under such strict sanctions, if they got to get creative, if they want to have, if they want to bring in any type of, dollars or any type of gold or any type of, assets to run their government or run their military or whatever, they got to get creative. So they do, counterfeiting. They hack. They try to hack Bitcoin, or steal Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. They do identity theft. So essentially, the Cartel de los Sols, they're just a large criminal organization, and Trump wants them designated as a terrorist organization so that they can justify overthrowing Maduro, because I'm sure you're also all aware, the AUMF, the 2001 AUMF that was signed as the reason for us to, AUMF standing for the authorized use of military force. That's what we signed in 2000. Hang on, I have the date pulled up real quick. I think there have been multiple AUMFs that have been signed, but hang on, I have the notes right here. Point number 4. The 2001 authorization for use of military force. That is not an official declaration of war. The last time we've declared war as a country, Congress, being vested the power to declare war by the Constitution. The last time we declared war as a country was World War II. Everything since then has just been Congress essentially granting the president to conduct military operations. One of the more recent ones is the 2001 AUMF for the text says, it authorizes force against those who planned, authorized, committed, or aided the 9/11 attacks and those who harbored them. So Al Qaeda, the Taliban, all of their associated forces. So obviously, does not apply, the 2001 AUMF, because it didn't say anything about drug cartels, and Venezuela had nothing to do with 9/11. But the what's the word I'm looking for? The precedent, at least since since the end of World War II, the precedent has been set that as long as the president can convince Congress that some foreign power or some foreign group poses a threat, a terrorist threat, a national security threat to the United States or to our allies, then they should turn the other way, and either turn the other way or straight up approve any of the operations that they want to do. So it seems like right now that that's the direction they're going. They want to flag the Maduro regime as terrorists, because nothing gets Congress excited like blowing up a bunch of terrorists. But I just wanted to run through real quick a couple of interesting points about Venezuela. So Venezuela, similar to Iraq, it is one of the largest known oil reserves in the entire world. It's actually, I think it is the largest proven oil reserves. Now it's sour oil, which means it's high in sulfur and other particulates and things that just make it really hard to extract and purify and refine. But it's still the largest proven oil reserves in the world. There's other really incredible, valuable resources located within Venezuela. There's a lot of gold. There's a lot of natural gas. There's a lot of iron, nickel, copper, diamonds, like 6% of the world's global reserves of sulfur. So I'm not saying that Trump specifically is, in some type of weird, Halliburton situation where, he and his buddies are trying to divvy up Venezuela. But it's just worth pointing out that Venezuela is an incredibly oil and mineral rich country, that they would, at the very least, prefer somebody who is more friendly to the United States to be in charge of. But to the point of Venezuela being a narco-terrorist state, I think what's interesting, nobody's really denying that Venezuela has, a drug industry, an illicit drug industry, and that those drugs make their way up to the United States. But if we're going to use the logic, in my opinion, that Venezuela, the regime needs to be toppled because its government is working hand in glove with drug traffickers and actual drug terrorists, then why are we not applying that same logic to the Mexican government when it's way more of the drugs that come into the United States, especially the harmful ones like meth and fentanyl, those all come from Mexico. Those don't come from Venezuela. Venezuela is mostly cocaine, and that cocaine is actually produced in Colombia, and then it makes its way into Venezuela, and then makes either, is trafficked up through Central America over on land or by boat, which is those are the operations that they've been doing, where they've been bombing all these drug boats in the Caribbean. Um, but yeah, U.S. bound cocaine, 90% of it goes through Mexico and Central America across the U.S. Mexico border. So, and again, meth and fentanyl. That is the stuff fentanyl is the stuff that's killing Americans and acting as a blight in our cities, and has people like dying in the streets in Philadelphia and Washington D.C. and Salt Lake. That's all coming from Mexico, and the precursors are coming from China and India. It's as far as official DEA sources. The problem is not, as far as fentanyl and meth, is not Venezuela. So I don't understand why they're pushing the drug angle so hard, when that pretty much just opens up a bunch of questions like, why don't they overthrow the Mexican government for the same reason? Why don't we overthrow India for the same reason? Why don't we overthrow China for the same reason? They're the ones that are pushing the actual dangerous drugs into our country. We seem to have no problem with the Mexican government doing that. But we seem to be in a real rush to, project power and project, potentially overthrowing the regime in Venezuela. Yeah, 90%. Sorry, I'm just going through these. So currently, right now, the reason this is, I care about this. I'm interested in foreign politics. I really hate that we're getting involved, and that we think that we have to be the policeman of every point in the planet, especially as we have a currency crisis and a demographic crisis here at home. We have way more issues, I think, like legitimate security and military issues facing our national security issues facing our country here at home than we do abroad. And I mean specifically on Venezuela. So Venezuela, currently the estimates is that the country is about 29 to 30 million people living there. But in the last 10 years alone, anywhere from 7 to 8 million Venezuelan refugees have left their country. So they've lost, what is that? That's almost like 25 to 30%. I apologize if I did that math wrong in my head, but that's like 25 to 30% of their population has fled in the past 10 years because they've had, such a terrible time down there. No thanks to us. We've been slapping them with some of the hardest sanctions in the world. We've created a massive refugee crisis in Venezuela. And within the United States, there are at least 770,000 Venezuelan immigrants. About 600,000 of them had temporary protected status. Trump, recently he's been talking about trying to revoke. They're in the process right now of terminating the temporary protected status for Venezuelans. But I cannot imagine a world where overthrowing the government of Venezuela is going to make it more stable, and it's going to make people want to come back to Venezuela. If anything, it's going to create an even worse refugee crisis. I mean, look what happened in Syria. Look what happened in Iraq. Look what's going on in Yemen. Everywhere that we go, where we, really try to meddle with who's in charge and we overthrow the government, especially in a violent way, it usually always results in a crazy refugee crisis. I mean, look what happened to Europe. Our involvement in the war on terror by, blowing the shit out of every, village and every tent that we saw, and displacing, millions of people and creating an entire, region of instability. And, there's a lot of other factors that play, obviously, but just completely destroying infrastructure, completely destroying any economic opportunity that people have. If there's no stability in the government, there's going to be no outside funding. Who wants to invest in a country where the government can be overthrown by, like multiple different military and militia factions? Nobody has control, so nobody's going to invest. If there's no investment, then there's going to be no economic activity. If there's no economic activity, you're just going to have even more lawlessness, or people are just going to flee, to greener pastures like Europe or the United States, where, at the same time we have NGOs and organizations and the government itself, inviting these people in, just like we saw with with what happened last week in Washington D.C. with the Afghan terror attack, where the National Guard troops were shot by an Afghan who was brought in to the United States after our disastrous withdrawal. So anyway, I kind of fired up. I did not, for one, vote. I voted for Trump to, you know, keep us out of wars, keep us out of foreign wars, keep us out of the stupid wars, in the Middle East. I certainly did not vote for any ramping up of wars in that region, and I definitely did not vote for any ramping up of pointless regime change wars in South America, especially if it's going to be if we're going to use the excuse of trying to fight drug trafficking into the United States. I mean, securing our border, our land border between Mexico, is a great step in the right direction. But I mean, why are we not, like, if we're going to use the justification of overthrowing a narco terrorist regime, then we should look more closely at the ones that are more, that we're more economically tied to. And I think ultimately that's the real, it's the real problem. Venezuela wants nothing to do with us, and they have all the oil in the world, they have all the gold in the world, they got all the iron in the world, um, and we're closely tied economically to Mexico. We have a lot of factories there. We moved a lot of, we've got, I think Ford still makes a lot of their trucks in Mexico. We have obviously really close ties with China. We have, increasingly close ties with India, and all those countries, all those governments are, if if they're not actively participating, they're certainly aware of all the precursor drug, or all the precursor chemicals that are being produced in their countries and then shipped into the United States. So anyway, that's my rant. Appreciate you guys tuning in.